Over 7 million different animals inhabit our planet.
Amazing, iconic animals like the sea turtles and what's happening to them. And people are starting to pay more attention. And so hopefully...
What can they teach us?
Green sea turtles can stay down as long as 5 hours.
How?
This is nuts.
That's incredible. What?
Listen to this. Their heart rate slows.
Many species are in crisis and need your help. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.
Welcome to All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
And I'm Angie.
Happy holidays, Angie.
Happy holidays.
I see your Christmas tree in the background.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
This is what I get to listen to before we record, after we record. She just sings.
It's
why we record.
Well, it's to help get the frogs out of my throat.
It is.
I know. To warm up the chops.
Definitely a better singer than I could ever be, you know. Have you seen A Star is Born?
No.
That is a great movie. It is a good movie. People go see that. Lady Gaga, I was not a fan before. If she listens, Lady Gaga, I love you.
She's awesome. Yeah, I've always been a fan.
After that movie,
I've heard people even talk about maybe like winning an
Oscar.
An Oscar or one of those awards.
She deserves it.
Yeah,
she deserves it. She blew me away.
Okay, I'll put it on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah. She blew me away. I mean, Bradley Cooper was amazing too. He took him 2 years.
Yeah, he's not hard on the eyes either.
No, she's not either. I mean, she's beautiful too. Yeah. But geez, dude, I'm telling you, I walked out of that movie and I was like, wow, that was a good surprise.
Okay, excellent.
There you go. Anyways, I bring that up because you're singing. But this episode has been requested quite a bit. You've been dying to do these animals for quite a while.
It's been on my bucket list since, I don't know, months. Yeah, for more than months, a long time. Yes. It's
I just don't know why it took us so long to get to them. I don't know. We just have so many to cover. But sea turtles.
Well, exactly. We're saving one of the best for last in 2018, right?
Yes. Yeah. Year 2. We're entering year 2.
Well, I think it's a great time too to be highlighting the sea turtle as they've been in the media a lot, as people are starting to become more aware of things that are happening in our oceans and things, therefore the trickle down effect of what's happening to the animals, especially the great, magnificent, amazing, iconic animals like the sea turtles and what's happening to them. And people are starting to pay more attention. And so hopefully this podcast, for those of you out there that have wanted to know more about sea turtles or might know somebody who wants to know more about sea turtles, stay tuned because it'll definitely be a fun podcast, an informative podcast, and an informative podcast in that these guys are really struggling. And that's, I think, why we wanted to highlight them as well. So...
yeah, for sure. I mean, shout out to Joanne from South Africa. She's the latest that's requested it. Had a few other people.
Thanks, Joanne.
And, yeah. She posted on our Facebook page and shared some stuff. That just for us real quick housekeeping. Please share these episodes if you can. This is the year Angie and I really need to pick up steam. We want to do this for years and years and years. We don't
want real jobs, but I'm having them right now. And so the poor podcast is getting put on the back burner because of all these little side jobs I'm doing. So help us not have real jobs.
Yes, we would. This would be our job.
No, it's not about us. It's actually about the animals and about getting people excited. And everybody we know has a favorite species, whether they're a bird nerd like myself, or obviously today we're covering reptiles, which are super, let alone ones that swim in the ocean. So pretty unique. And, or mammals with hoofs and horns, or really anything. So everybody knows somebody that likes some type of animal and that would benefit from listening to this podcast, or maybe clips of this podcast, maybe not all of our yammering. And then also too, the website's beautiful and Chris does an amazing job. So even if you don't have time to check out, let's say the whole Sea Turtle podcast, because you have a short commute, You could just go to www.allcreaturespod.com, and Chris has all the main highlights of all the links that you should check out. And of course, fun factoids and great conservation organizations that are helping the species out. So there's lots of different routes. Like, we're not just a one-trick pony, are we, Chris?
No. We're trying to expand a little bit. So, it just helps us, and if you haven't, please rate the podcast on any app you use or on iTunes. It just helps us. And we just really, really, really thank you, because we need to keep fighting for these animals.
Absolutely. We need to spread the message that it's not just us 7 billion people on the planet, that we share it with a lot of other amazing critters that deserve our time and our energy. And as we discuss in this podcast, stick with us towards the end, but we are going to discuss some of the threats and issues and problems with the sea turtle populations and why the numbers are plummeting. And this one, Chris, is like really humans' fault, like 1,000%.
Oh yeah.
So, and maybe it might not be you or me, but we all do a little polluting here or there. And so I think we could all try to work together and support some of these amazing conservation organizations that are out there doing the work, and just let people know why they should care about the oceans. So stick with us, and I promise you're going to want to save a sea turtle. Okay. That is our hashtag. I don't even know if we do hashtags, what a hashtag is, if I could even find it on my phone.
That's better than that one you came up with. I don't even remember what episode it was, but it was like 50 words long, hashtag
Yes.
and I'm like, that's not how they work.
Yes. Moms my age should not be hashtagging. I think that might be a rule.
Mom brain.
Yeah. And I'm not good at hashtagging, not very clever. But this hashtag of Save a Sea Turtle is really important, Chris, because it's become my new saying for pretty much any consumer good that involves plastic that is a superfluous. Is that a word? Superfluous?
It is now. It is now.
John corrected me. I know I'm saying that wrong, but any plastic that you don't need, like from a grocery store. I say to the checkout clerk when they ask me if I want a bag or whatever, I say, no, thank you. Save a sea turtle. And I will tell you, I wish I could say I came up with it. Actually, a clerk at a store said that to me. But I want the whole world to be saying that when they have an option to not use plastic, to not get to go silverware, plastic silverware, to not get plastic chapsticks, to not have 14 million. For instance, recently we got our Christmas tree a few weeks ago, and here in the States, I don't know if they do this in other countries, but when they package up your Christmas tree to put it in or on your car, they put plastic around it, like netting, plastic netting. And it keeps the diameter of the tree down. That's all well and good. But the minute you get home, you just cut that plastic off, and it's not the kind you can recycle. It's not like a soda bottle or milk jug. So it goes right in the trash, which either goes in the landfill or sometimes ends up in the ocean, and sometimes sea turtles end up eating it. So I said to the gentleman that was about to pack up my tree, I said, sir, can we just put it in my car without plastic? Like, the needles are going to fall all over the place anyway. And he looked at me like I was a little bit off my rocker, like I'm some hippy dippy. But I said to him, I was like, man, save a sea turtle. I don't need this plastic. And his heart, Chris, I could see in his face, his face softened and his heart melted. And he was like, yeah, man, right on. And he jammed that Christmas tree in my Honda Element and was like, yeah, great idea. And so it's little things like that where you might think you're awkward for saying, no, thank you. I don't want that, or I don't need that. But then if you bring up sea turtles with Save a Sea Turtle, it really lightens the mood, softens, it gets people thinking. Okay. It gets that, which is what you and I do every week when we get together. It gets the conversation started. It gets you out of your routine. It gets you thinking about ways. I mean, basically it's the way we grew up, or our parents grew up. Christmas trees weren't wrapped. Everything wasn't individually plastic, this, plastic, that. So maybe we are a little going, maybe we need to go back to our roots. But in the interim, just say, save a sea turtle.
Right, right. And that's, that's really what this episode's about is, how they're so amazing. I mean, these are very popular animals on Earth. They're located pretty much all over Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They're popular in culture, t-shirts, you see them. I see bumper stickers. In Florida, you have that license plate, tattoos. I mean, people love sea turtles. They're amazing. They're mystical.
Yeah. Oh, and I've had the luxury of being able to see them in the wild, just snorkeling on a reef off of the Big Island of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a green sea turtle, but I'm not 100% because I didn't have my little handy dandy guide with me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but just floating in the water with them, and I've seen them in the Caribbean as well. It's just life changing. You're like, it's incredible. And they're just a well-loved animal. We need to keep them around.
Yeah.
So our kids can be snorkeling sometime and perhaps see one, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
They're really great. They're really great.
And they've been around, and you'll cover an evolution, but they've been around for like millions of years. So
long time. Long time. It's a good story. So there's 7 different species of sea turtle. We're going to cover them and some of their similarities. So this episode's general sea turtles. And then when there's something specific to a species, we'll cover that. Now you're going to stay tuned at the end. Angie, do you know this fact? Sea turtles cry. And they're probably crying a lot right now.
I was going to say, yeah, swimming around all that plastic. And they're like, geez.
Yeah. So we'll cover why. Why do sea turtles cry? So it's interesting.
That's a country song in the making.
I know. But their physiology is really cool. Like, I can't wait to get some of this. It's really amazing. Now, we did cover the alligator snapping turtle, which is a freshwater turtle. So again, I guess that's kind of why we pushed sea turtles back a little bit, because we did cover one, I don't know, it was like 20, 30 pods ago. But I did cover it there, and I'll cover it here, the difference between a turtle versus a tortoise. And, the difference is turtles generally spend most of their life in water, where tortoises spend most of their life on land. Tortoise shells are usually more dome-shaped. Their feet are definitely different than tortoises. They're short and sturdy and bent, whereas turtles have web feet, right? So there's, the tortoise mainly plants, few are omnivores, whereas turtles can be herbivores. They can be carnivorous, omnivores. So we'll cover that a little bit in this episode. Really interesting diets. But the easiest way, I think, is just tortoises are on land, turtles are in water, fresh or salt. That's a good way to just generalize the differences. Now, the sea turtles, I think the easiest thing to say, Angie, is they're turtles with fins, right?
Yes.
And their shells are a little bit more streamlined, longer, streamlined.
Yeah, I think with a sea turtle, it's like a majority of their body is protected by the shell.
Yeah, and of the 7 species, 6 have hard shells, except the huge one, the leatherback, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's a softer shell, but it's leathery, and they're huge. They're huge. They get up to 6.5 feet or 6 feet and weigh almost 1,300 pounds. Oh my God. Yeah.
Definitely haven't seen one of those. That is on the bucket list for sure. Yeah. That's huge. I'm sitting at my dining room table and I'm like, okay, that must be like my dining room table.
Yeah. I'm looking at my bed, and recording in my office, and I'm like, holy smoke, it's as long as that bed. Jeez, because my feet hang off. So, they're huge. Leatherbacks are huge.
And I think it's important too to note that one difference too is that with sea turtles, they don't retract their head back into their shell.
No, they can't. So it's, when we get to predators,
and protection.
it's they don't really have it like another turtle or even a tortoise that can pull into their shell and use that shell as protection. And their legs and hard outer skin, the sea turtles can't. So, like I know tiger sharks like to eat sea turtles and they can chew through them. And so they lose fins and stuff like that.
Okay.
The hard scales or on the back of their shells are called shuts. And so the way they shoots. Scute.
Yes.
Okay. Scutes. Some Wisconsin thing. That's Wisconsin-y.
Probably.
Yeah. And shout out to all of our friends in Wisconsin. We love you. But they determine that the size, the order, and the total, that's how they kind of tell between the species. And also colors, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So depending on the species, it can be olive green, yellow, reddish brown, black, I think greenish brown.
Gorgeous, more gorgeous, extra gorgeous, cute.
Right. Yeah, they're very, very. And adult males are not any bigger than females, right? About the same size.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So the 7 species. Can you name them all? Ready? Go.
Leatherback, that's the unique one. We'll talk about little highlights there. Loggerhead.
Yeah.
Green.
Yep.
Kemp's Ridley.
Yep.
I'm getting close.
Flatback
or
Yep.
flatback.
You probably have it right in front of your face.
No, I don't. I have that on the slide. I like to see how much of the stuff when I'm studying it. It's like a quiz.
Good.
And
2 more. Olive. It's just like Kemp's
Ridley.
Yes, and then
I wonder how he must be a famous person. He has 2 sea turtles named after him.
Yeah. It's a bird of prey. Bill.
Hawksbill. Thank you.
Yeah, good job. That's awesome. Jeez, I would have gotten 3.
Preparing for this pod has been so much fun. I have been really mesmerized by like kind of all the different 7 of them, and just we don't have time in this pod to go into all the details of each one. But for me, being the dork that I am, like, where do they live and what are the differences, and kind of quizzing myself on what I think I maybe saw in Hawaii or what I think I might have seen in the Caribbean. So, and then basically I want to know the 7 species. So if I'm ever in the water again and I see a sea turtle, I want to be darn certain that I know which species it is. Yeah.
They're cool. They are cool. Obviously the leatherback's the biggest. We said 6 feet, almost. I saw 1,300 pounds. Kemp's Ridley's the smallest. I think I saw
like 1,500 pounds somewhere. So yeah.
Yeah, they're big. They're big. The Kemp's Ridley, the smallest, 1.5 to 2 feet, way up to 100 pounds. So, and then they range in between that size. Now you said range, Angie. They, trying to look at the 7 species, they all are like equatorial mostly.
Oh yeah. I mean, basically they can be found in oceans except polar regions.
Where it's like super cold.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Basically the flatback is found solely in the northern coast of Australia, and the Kemp's Ridley is over here by me, found solely in the Gulf of Mexico, and then it swings up the east coast of the United States.
Right.
But there's not that many.
But most of the other
ones,
I know that's the sad part.
Yeah.
Leatherbacks all around the world, loggerheads all around the world, green sea turtles all around the world.
Literally, when you say all around the world, they migrate all around the world. They ride the currents. We'll get there. So
yeah. Well, it's like, Nemo. Most everybody saw Finding Nemo. It was Crush, the sea turtle, and it was like they were in the stream going down to Sydney. Whatever something. What was the fish saying? Something way. I forgot the name of the street. Somebody knows it. I haven't seen the movie in a few years, but he was like da 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 Sydney. Giving the address, and so he jumps on the girl's stream. Yeah.
You have a good memory.
Good movie. All right, Ange, why care about sea turtles? Not just because we love them.
I was going to say cute.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, from a scientific point of view, they fill a couple ecological niches, and we'll touch on it more in nutrition, but they play a key role in oceans and also in beaches and dunes. In the ocean, a lot of sea turtles, especially the green sea turtle, are one of the few species that actually eat seagrass. Another one we covered was the manatee. So check out that episode if you haven't listened to our manatee episode, and our amazing interview with Jonathan. He was our manatee specialist, so that's a fun one that gets a lot of hits still this day.
He's one of the few people on Earth that know manatee repro. Like, it amazes me talking to Jonathan. Like, there's one of like 10 people on Earth that know anything about them. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And we need to get them over to sea turtle research, because as I was studying them, I find out that, spoiler alert, we don't know a ton about them as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, with that being said, a lot of the sea turtles, especially green turtles, eat seagrass, and it's really important because this grazing helps maintain the health of the seabeds. And it also provides, these seabeds provide like good breeding and developmental grounds for other marine mammals. So without them, and many species down the chain would have detriments to their breeding and overall life cycle if it wasn't for the sea turtles maintaining their home in the grass beds. And then additionally, which we'll talk about a lot in life cycle and reproduction, but I'm sure most people are familiar with the fact that sea turtles lay their eggs on the beach shores. They dig holes and lay eggs. And more details to come as the pod progresses, but beaches and dunes are really a fragile habitat that provide a lot of protection against erosion, right? For houses and things for humans. Well, the eggs, and this is a little bit of a sad story that we'll talk about a lot today, is that not all baby sea turtles make it. Not all eggs hatch, and then not all baby sea turtles are able to get into the water quick enough. But nature being cyclical, everything has a purpose, is the turtles and the eggs themselves that don't make it actually can provide a lot of nutrient sources to the dune vegetation that grow on it. And therefore, the vegetation of the dunes grow better and they prevent erosion. So from an ecosystem role, they play a lot of key factors for things that we care about. And from an economical point of view, if you're a numbers guy or gal, which I think a lot of our legislation and political people are, well, why should you care about sea turtles? Because of money, money, money. Like my dad always said, when it's not about the money, it's about the money. So for instance, there's a really famous beach town on the Pacific coast of northern Costa Rica. So shout out to any of our Costa Rican fans. I don't think we've had any Costa Rican hits yet.
I don't know.
We will maybe
we'll
after this.
Yeah.
We will after this podcast, because there's a city there called Tortuguero, which is famous for sea turtles coming to lay their eggs and hatchlings swimming out to the ocean. In fact, this town transitioned into a place that basically sold turtle meat and shells. They knocked all that stuff off and they transitioned to a pure tourism industry. And it's considered to be the founding location of sea turtle conservation. And basically, since the creation of about a 22-mile stretch of beach, they have generated a lot of interest in sea turtle conservation, which is huge, right? Educating people is huge. But then also that money, that interest and that education has translated into dinero, into dollars, right? And tourists go there by hordes and just love it and spend money, and the local economy has flourished because of it. Right. As well have the turtles in that area. So I think when things like that are considered, if there's no more sea turtles, that town's going to go under, right? That's what they base their economy on. So with the sea turtle being such an iconic and well-loved animal, there are tons of people out there that want to see them and protect them. So I think there's already money being generated in this, and I think there's potentially a lot more that could be generated if we can actually save them, right? So that's why we're going to be talking about a lot of conservation groups today, and I'll be giving them shout outs and telling you to go spend your money there, your holiday money, because they're the ones that are helping keep these guys alive.
What I got out of that was go to Costa Rica. I've heard Costa Rica's amazing and a lot of ecotourism down there.
No, and so it's so this pod always makes me want to kick myself sometimes, because I've been to Costa Rica twice, Chris.
Yeah.
And I did not, it's from where, Costa Rica is a small country, but I have my favorite parts of Costa Rica. And so it always seemed like too far to go up that way because it is, like I said, in the, you usually land in the capital and that's in the center of the country. And so but now now I got to go back. But I've been wanting to John's never been. And I think Costa Rica is a fabulous country that I kind of want to move there a lot of times.
Yeah.
Just buy a little hut and just live my life out peacefully. But it's a fabulous country, and they're ecotourism not only for sea turtles, but their whole economy has shifted in the past 20 to 30 years based on ecotourism for a lot of the beautiful rainforests and jungles that they have there.
Poison dart frogs.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Macaws,
Yeah.
howler monkeys. I remember
Monkeys,
waking up and hearing howler monkeys. It's just incredible. And so, I highly recommend Costa Rica. And, my favorite town is in Costa Rica. And my close friends know that if I've ever run away from life, they know where they can find me in Costa Rica.
In Costa Rica or South Africa? Because I was just telling somebody yesterday about the rhino orphanage and how you were going to run off there.
True. Yeah.
You're going to be, you're going to be in South Africa, and I'm going to be up in Kenya at the elephant orphanage.
I know. Okay. So now I got to think about so if I run away from life, I will spend
6 months and 6 months.
Yes. I will spend my winters in South Africa at the rhino orphanage. And I will spend my winters in my secret town that I can't give the name, in Costa Rica. Okay. It's not Tortuguero, but it might be now because I've never been. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to add on to that, why care, jumping into evolution. And again, I covered it briefly with snapping turtles, but turtle evolution, tortoise evolution spans over 220 million years.
That's incredible, Chris.
Yes. These are ancient creatures that are still walking the earth. So anytime you see one of them, realize their ancestors have lived for over 200 million years. I mean,
so they're basically dinosaurs. You're telling me.
Well, they lived in that age. They're not dinosaurs per se, the reptiles, but yeah. I mean, they were evolving with dinosaurs at the time, and they're just incredible. So sea turtles specifically, reading up on some of the science behind sea turtle evolution, or turtles in general, they are one of the most successfully evolutionary adapted animals on Earth because they have survived so much and they've thrived. Now we're wiping them out. That's what breaks my heart. These animals have survived the 5th mass extinction, Angie. These turtles and crocodiles are the two species that did just okay, fine. I'm sure some of their species got wiped out and whatnot, but overall, those two animals did just fine during the last mass extinction. And now here in the 6th, chances are they may not survive, which is insane. I know. Sea turtles specifically date back at least 150 million years, where they have found evidence in our good old friend Dr. Mesa's home country of Colombia.
Ah, yes.
Yes. So they found fossils in there that ancient.
Wow.
But what I read was crazy. They're ancient turtles. They're not primitive turtles, meaning they have yet to find the ancestors that are even older. So, that's why they think 220 million years, which is insane. It's insane. So they have evolved a long time. Now, all right, Angie. So of the 7 species, there's 2 different clades. There's the Chelonidae, which is the 6th of the 7. So you have the loggerhead, the Kempson olive ridley, the hawksbill, flatback, and green turtle. Then the leatherback is in Dermochelidae, and they made that split almost 100 million years ago. So leatherbacks
100 million years ago.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And again, this is all genetics, right? So all genetic background stuff. So just, oh my goodness, nuts. The 6 of the 7 pretty much split out about 40, 50 million years ago. So after the 5th mass extinction, that's when they've kind of separated out. The latest split is between the Kemps and the olive, and that was over 35 million years ago. So nuts. I mean, just nuts with it. Now, the species name, I just picked loggerhead and leatherback. Loggerhead is one of the more popular ones in the United States. That's the one that was down near in Florida. So they're caretta. The leatherback is Dermochelys coriacea.
Very good. Saying that wrong? A plus. No, I don't think so. Yeah.
And it's the largest turtle ever. So this is leatherback's hands down biggest turtle in the world. 600 kilograms, 1,300 pounds.
That's huge.
Enormous.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Just big. With that being said, can you guess the smallest turtle in the world? I know you don't know the name.
Ooh.
But guess the size.
A baby turtle?
Yeah. What's the
Let's
size?
just talk about baby turtles for the rest of the podcast.
The adult looks like a baby turtle. How big do you think the smallest turtle in the world gets?
Oh. 5 pounds. Oh no. Your thumb. You're giving me a hint.
No, that's how big?
6 inches.
A half it. 3 inches. 3 inches. So you're right. Yeah. My thumb's not quite that big. Maybe almost. 3 inches is the adult size, 6 to 8 centimeters. Only weighs about 100 to 150 grams. So tiny. And this is the speckled padloper tortoise.
Cute.
Question. Where? Tortoise. Not turtle.
Yeah. Tortoise. Tortoise. Africa.
Yeah. Good job.
Nice.
Near your rhinos.
Totally. I just totally guessed. I love
it.
I should go play the lottery.
You should. South Africa. And they say they're like, so easy for predators to eat. So they hide in those little crevices of the rocks and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought it was really cute because, we've covered the biggest. Now that's the smallest little tiny turtle.
I know. Baby turtles.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We will be talking about baby turtles in repro. So
yes, we're getting there. Just a couple of things on physiology and then we'll turn Angie loose.
A couple amazing things. These are, yes. We'll for time's sake, because I talk so much about Christmas trees and saving sea turtles, but they have some amazing physiological facts.
Yeah. Now the life cycle or how long they live, sea turtles basically have lives that last the lifespan of a human.
Yes.
So 50 years or more, some even say 80 years. They can live up to be 80 years old. Crush said he was over 100. So I don't know if that's true in the movie, but they live a long time. They do live a long time. Now, this is cool. They migrate thousands of miles in their lifetime.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not like they just hang out off the coast of Florida, which is cool. It's fun, but
sure.
They go crazy distances.
Oh, yeah. They really like to travel. Like, I think I like to travel.
Yeah.
They really like to travel. The leatherback sea turtle can travel more than 10,000 miles every year.
That's insane.
Man, think of those frequent flyer miles. Holy cow.
That frequent swim miles. Like, God, that is a heck of a swim.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like we travel like a lot of miles, but we're in planes, trains, or automobiles. But these guys are actually doing the work. A lot of times they are gliding and riding in the currents. But yes, their migration is just incredible. And somehow the females, which migrate for years and years and years and years, know when it's time to come back to lay their eggs. They come back, most species come back to their natal beach. And so if you're a female leatherback sea turtle, you've been migrating 10,000 miles on average a year for decades. So 20, 30 years before you become sexually mature enough to lay your eggs. And then you somehow remember where you were born and go back to that beach to lay your eggs.
Which is nuts. You said that, and I was like, you said instinctually, they know where to go. I mean, they know how, I know we don't know yet, but how their brains either navigate by stars or they can detect the I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is amazing. Animals consistently, especially in this podcast, but when we research this stuff, amaze me what they can do.
Mind blown. Chris, I can't even remember how to get to my darn dentist office. Like that I went 2 years ago. Just kidding. I go every 6 months, Mom. Every 6 months I go to the dentist, just like you taught me. But I mean, here they are pinpointing the direct beach. And I don't mean just like, I was hatched in Florida. I find Florida. I mean the exact 10-mile stretch of Florida where they were born. Incredible.
That's nuts. It's nuts. Animals are amazing. They're just amazing. Now, let me ask you this. Okay. If I'm going to swim 10,000 miles, how fast can I swim?
Oh, that's a great question.
You saw that factoids. Yeah.
20 miles an hour. I don't know.
Yeah, good. Man, you're on tonight, Dr. Angie.
Wow.
They can burst at 22 miles an hour, 35 kilometers per hour. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But generally, they glide at like 2 miles an hour. When you saw them, they were gliding about 3.5 kilometers per hour.
Exactly. So. Yes. No, that way I could just watch them and with my jaw hitting the floor with my scuba mask on and getting water in my mouth, just being blown away.
Now, males and females don't have any specific names. They're just turtles. Babies are hatchlings, which Angie's going to cover. Group is called, this was kind of weird, a bale of sea turtles.
How do you spell that?
B-A-L-E.
Okay, like a hay bale.
Yeah, bale of sea turtles. Or I think they said a nest, but I think it's more of like the babies or a nest of sea turtles. Mm-hmm. All right. So some factoids. Diving. This is the one that I just was like blown away again. I mean, anybody that's listened to us, we talk about whales and, we talked about walruses and different species that live in the water. How do they dive and hold their breath? Because we go down and we start dying after a minute, or me, 30 seconds. It's like, and, how do they do it? So sea turtles are cold-blooded, so they have a very slow metabolic rate.
Do you know the word of the day? Metabolic
rate?
No.
What's that one? Crepuscular, whatever you said.
Close. No. Most sea turtles are poikilotherms.
Okay. That's a big one. Jeez. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Angie is here to.
Which basically just means just like their temperature is regulated from the environment, not internally.
Right. And
except for the leatherback, interestingly enough, that once again, he's the little bit different guy on the evolutionary tree branch twig of the sea turtle family. He is an endotherm because they can basically maintain a body temperature of 8 degrees Celsius, which is typically warmer than the ambient water. And I don't think researchers understand a lot about why they can do that or how, but it does set them apart from the typical cold-blooded, basically, for lack of better words, sea turtles.
Right. So when we talk about metabolic rate, think about it. It's, think of a hummingbird. Which we've got to do hummingbird at some point. There you go. There's on our list.
Yes, absolutely.
Think about their metabolic rate. Super fast, right? They're burning energy.
Their heart rate. I don't know the factoid off the top of my head, but the beats per, minute are incredible.
Insane. So they need a lot of oxygen to feed those cells because the cells are burning energy and they need the oxygen. When you have a slow metabolic rate, you don't need as much oxygen. That's why we breathe to get oxygen.
That would be me.
Yeah, energy. Now, the hawksbill, just give you some comparison, can dive for 35 to 45 minutes. Green sea turtles can stay down as long as 5 hours.
How?
This is nuts.
That's incredible. What?
Listen to this. Their heart rate slows so slowly that there's a beat every 9 minutes.
That's
like it's almost like they just
crazy. They're almost like frozen
hibernating.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So they, during dives, their body shunts blood away from tissues that aren't tolerant of low oxygen. So it maintains oxygen to the heart, brain, and nervous system. The leatherbacks do have more red blood cells, so they have more oxygen. So maybe that's a trick. And again, like whales, we talked about the oxygen binding myoglobin, that their blood cells, they have more of that in their blood. So they have more oxygen in their muscles.
Right. So they can store it or hold on to it.
Yeah. So here you have these mammals that can dive deep and do that. And then you have these reptiles that dive deep and do that. So that's the physiology behind some of that. Just incredible stuff. Now, real quick before we jump into behavior, diets vary by species, which is pretty nuts. Angie, what do leatherbacks like? What's their delicacy, their food of choice?
They're definitely a species after my own heart. That's for sure. They like jellyfish, right?
Yeah, it's like that's all they eat. Their diet is mostly jellyfish, and there's not a lot of nutrients in an individual jellyfish. Like, what the heck? They just go around
I'll tell you what, they're helping
things.
control the jellyfish population, which is, you gotta love them for that, because I have been in the ocean and bumped into a jellyfish and it didn't go over so well. They washed up on shore. So some of the leatherbacks are immune to their poisons that the toxins they secrete. How? I don't know if researchers know fully. But once again, it's like, if we could learn more about that, maybe they could help us humans out with our jellyfish stings. So
yes.
pretty incredible. And then that's what we're talking about, why we care, ecological niches. I think that leatherback really fills that one by helping us humans get less jellyfish stings.
Yeah, nobody likes jellyfish. They're beautiful, but yeah.
Xander loves jellyfish. Yeah. I think he loves me. I'm an octopus fan myself, but I think he loves the jellyfish even more. And Chris, that reminds me, we were watching an Octonauts episode, of course, the cartoon that my boys love. And I think we do need to cover the immortal jellyfish sometime. Yes,
that is on the list. That is definitely on the list because it lives forever.
Because I was even insane. Like on this kids cartoon, their physiology. I'm like, what? I need, and I'm too busy to I didn't have time in that moment to explore it. So I was like, I'll make Chris do half the research and we'll talk about it.
There you go. Now, the reason leatherbacks, just to finish them out, is because they have these really delicate, they call them scissor-like jaws, and they have to eat soft-bodied animals. They cannot eat hard shell crabs or something like that because it will hurt their mouths. So that's why they love jellies. Who doesn't like jelly? I love jelly on toast, right? All right. Now, the other species vary. And like the loggerhead is carnivorous and they feed on shellfish. So they like those crabs and clams and mussels and other invertebrates. The olive ridley, very similar. Crustaceans, mollusks, things like that. The hawksbill, like sea sponges. The green turtle is the one you were talking about. Very important for seagrass. So they're a herbivore, or an omnivore, the flatback. Again, crabs, crustaceans, mussels. So,
and Chris, what I found really interesting about the green turtle was that its diet changes with age. Kind of like mine, I suppose, a little bit. Yeah. Juveniles are omnivorous, but as they mature into adulthood, they become exclusively herbivores. So exclusively the seagrass. So I just think that that's really interesting that they change. I don't know if we've had another species that I can think of off the top of my head. That doesn't mean that they're not out there. So maybe our listeners that know a little bit more about wildlife nutrition. But yeah, I think that's interesting that they go from being an omnivore to an herbivore throughout their lifetime.
I bet you, plus growth, going through a lot of growth.
Sure. Like
maybe more nutrients.
No, that's a great hypothesis. Yeah. I wish somebody would
test it.
I was going to say, who's going to give us money to test it, right?
The Sea Turtle Agency
Leonardo,
in Georgia.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, Leonardo,
where are you? I know you got to love sea turtles, buddy. I know you do.
Yeah. So let's talk some behavior. I mean, we talked about migration. the ability to locate that beach. So what are some of the, and we've talked about diving. What are some of the other cool things they do?
I think that's about all they do. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No.
Moving on.
Well, I think there's some truth to be said that a lot of behavior and probably even time budgets are still probably underrepresentative because they're so hard to study, especially the ones that are the sea turtles that are spending more times in coastal waters or eating the seabeds. You can get more study time in on those guys. But, when they're out in deep sea migrating, we don't know. What we do know is that they're generally solitary and they remain submerged for a lot of the time, and much of their life is out at sea. In fact, a male, this is pretty fascinating, Chris, a male is pretty much from the time it's a little hatchling baby on the beach, super cute, makes its way to the water, it pretty much stays in the water the rest of its life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the male and the female are going to rarely interact with each other outside of courtship and mating, which I'll touch on in a little bit. Now, the Ridleys do come together sometimes in massive groups for nesting. And sometimes there are large numbers of turtles that will gather for feeding ground or during migrations. But in general, there's not a ton of behavior amongst them that's documented. And so while the turtle's solitary, enjoying its peace in the ocean and just floating around or swimming around, they pretty much just feed and rest on and off throughout the day. And when it is nesting season, the sea turtles will migrate hundreds or thousands of miles to basically get the females to get to their beach. And their migration patterns evolve a little bit as they age. And so juveniles are typically going to spend their early years eating and growing. That's probably when they're omnivores, right? For the, which one was that? The green turtle? And then basically once they reach adulthood and sexual maturity, that's when they might go to a new feeding ground and look for breeding mates. And when it's their time to mate and to nest, both males and females will leave this feeding ground and migrate to the nesting beach area where the courtship and mating will take place.
It was interesting thinking about, you're talking about that courtship, and I'm sitting here thinking, how does it know when she's in, I don't even reptiles have estrus, but when she's receptive to breeding. So, I'm curious because this is going to turn into a 2-hour episode. There's so much cool stuff to cover with them. I know with the challenges, they're facing around the world and reading papers about specific nesting sites, in areas not only hit by say hurricanes that just hit Florida, that ruined nesting sites for them. I know with climate change and the oceans rising, sea rise, we're losing nesting sites on certain islands in the South Pacific. I just, repro wise, what, I guess, how do they find each other, mate, all that stuff? It's so critical to them.
Well, Chris, I think you asked the $1 million question that maybe somebody like Leonardo would want to fund. I don't know if researchers really know, except for, instinctually, going back to kind of the breeding grounds and then hoping that they, bump into a receptive female because you hit the nail right on the head. The female, they probably don't know a ton about her cycle, but we do know that there's a limited window where she is receptive. And that's going to be that's before she nests. And they've documented mating courtship behaviors, such as the male nuzzling the female's head or gently biting the back of her neck with his rear flippers. But other than that, there's still, I think, a lot of unknowns. A female will mate with several males prior to nesting. And the other trick of it is that she can store sperm, like a lot of reptiles can do.
Right.
So she can store sperm. I guess that then will maybe give her the ample amount of time to get back to her natal beach where she was born and or gather more nutrients depending on how good or bad her nutrition has been. And I think a lot of with sperm storage species that do that, we still don't know a lot of the mechanisms that trigger when it is time. They store the sperm. So when is it time for the animal then to ovulate? Or I couldn't find, that doesn't mean it's not out there, but I don't know if she's, I don't know. I don't know if she's an induced ovulator. I don't think it's anything like that.
No. I do remember, okay, certain reptiles can store sperm up to 5 years.
Correct.
I know that. And we know from, reproductive physiology, sperm cells will bind, like, this is in humans and other mammals, probably very similar mechanisms, and even insects possibly, because they store sperm for a long time too, that the sperm will actually bind to the cells within the female reproductive tract. In mammals,
they dock on
the oviducts.
They dock on the fallopian tube and hang out.
Yeah, and they get nutrients that way, so they're nourished and kept alive that way. And then there's a chemical signal during ovulation that they go, whoa, and then they go through what we know capacitation. They go hyperactive and search for that egg, and we're all 1 in a 500 million. We won the lottery. Very similar to them too. So yeah, it's probably something like that. It would be interesting to get a reptile expert that deals with repro.
But how is she receptive before then? So she must be some kind of estrogen mechanism.
Yeah, behavior.
Behavior helping her be receptive, even though she quote unquote hasn't ovulated yet.
Well, this even goes back to Jonathan. Like I said, it's going to turn into a 2-hour episode. Going into Jonathan's stuff, when he was doing early in his PhD, we're sitting there in a committee meeting and we're talking about, he's trying to figure out, one of the things he had a question about, which is a great question, is how do male manatees know when the female's in heat? And then they form this, it's insane. He showed this video of a female manatee being chased by like 8 male manatees to breed with her.
Poor thing,
she's like running away, like, leave me alone. And all these male manatees like, hey, baby. But how do they know? And so we were like, it can't be by smell, because the ocean's so huge.
Well, that's right. Well, what about a chemical pheromone? It wouldn't be
That's
maybe
what I
smell,
thought.
but maybe like a taste or something. I don't know.
No, I'm thinking behavior. It's got to be behavior, or there's got to be vocalizations or something. There's got to be something that's triggering. So in aquatic, I'm sure in whales, we've covered them, and their song travels, hundreds of kilometers. That we've got to find somebody. We've got to find some of these other repro experts that would blow us away with their knowledge.
Yeah. Or maybe they don't know. Like I said, they can be hard to study. I'm not sure, but I do think it'd be helpful to know. That's for sure. Because especially if we're going to try to attempt to save them in the years coming. It helps if we know more about, why and when. I don't know. I don't want to talk about this. I would guess it's behavior based, but I could see in a gathering, a female in her urine or she poops in the water. There's a chemical. Think it's chemical based. I don't know how to prove that. Well, I'd have to think of experimental design, but
no, they could be feeding, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, she's in, there's estrogen. We know estrogen in mammals, and there could be some smell in the water.
There are courtship behaviors documented. So maybe, or it could be a little bit of both. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't
know. It'd be cool. It'd be cool to find out.
But what researchers do know, which is very important for this podcast, one of my take-home messages, is with their life cycle, with the females and males in general, it takes decades, as we already mentioned, for them to reach sexual maturity. And they have to migrate to thousands of miles to reach breeding sites. And Chris, I really want to highlight too that with these sea turtles, that it takes decades, 10, 20 years, researchers do know this, for them to reach sexual maturity, for them to reproduce. So their life cycle is, very slow. The turnover rate is very low, and their mortality rate is crazy high, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. And so once a female has been bred and she stores a sperm and she decides it's time to lay her eggs, she will typically crawl out of the ocean at nighttime. And so once a female is receptive, courtship behaviors happen, and she stores her sperm, and then it's time for her to nest whenever her body, like we said, we don't know the mechanism that basically triggers her to actually start growing or mass producing these eggs. But when she knows when the time is right, she goes back to her natal beach, and usually at nighttime, the female will crawl out of the ocean, except for the kimps. The kimps will actually crawl out and build her nest during the day. But most of the species of sea turtles build them at nighttime, and they find suitable sand, and they basically dig and create this nest. So they use her hind flippers, and she digs a circular hole about 40 to 50 centimeters deep. And then she basically uses her hind flipper too to kind of scoop out a deeper part of the hole, and she'll lay her clutch of eggs. And this can be anywhere from 50 to 350 eggs, depending on the species. And she'll then cover the nest, fill the nest with sand, and basically sculpt it and smooth it over, make it all pat it nice. And this whole process takes 30 to 60 minutes, and she goes off into the ocean and leaves her eggs unattended, which is an evolutionary strategy that, it evolved the way it did for a reason, but it does leave those eggs obviously vulnerable. And incubation takes about 60 days, depending on the species and the temperature of the sand. Now, a female will lay 1 to 8 clutches in a single season, depending on, obviously, male counterparts and nutrient resources and all of that. So theoretically, there's multiple shots to have clutches out there. And what's really fascinating, I believe we touched on this in Snapping Turtle, maybe, or sometime, maybe, or I dreamt this. I had so many pods, I can't remember. But sea turtles have temperature-dependent sex determination, and
it was definitely because we were talking about global climate change.
Yeah, and so this is really going to mean something here, I think, in the years to come, because basically what that means is those eggs that are incubating in the sand and growing, like if you think of a chicken egg, right? Growing from yolk into a fetus or into an embryo, into a fetus, and developing. The sex is going to depend on the temperature of the sand that they're incubating in. And so warmer temperatures will produce females, where cooler temperatures produce males. And this has been scientifically, experimentally evidence proven time and time again. Researchers don't know exactly how. They do know that several species of turtles are starting to skew more towards females, but they don't know how bad. And of course, this is kind of a newer research. And so we need, scientists love data. So they want more and more data to back up their numbers just to see, and then trying to figure out how to counter that one. Because as much as I'm all about girl power, let alone girl turtle power, even cool, you do need a few guys, right? You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. No, just kidding.
I was listening to you, and I'm like, those poor girls, man. You guys do it all. You do it all.
Oh yeah. Laying all those eggs, a couple different clutches, swimming all over the place. Yeah. And with the hatchlings, also known as cute baby sea turtles, they're on their own. They're not like baby alligators. Their mama helps them break out of their nest. But baby sea turtles are all alone, and they use a temporary, it's called a sharp egg tooth, called a caruncle. And it's an extension of their upper jaw that falls off after birth, but they use that to help break the egg open. And then they have to skedaddle to the ocean pretty quickly, or they die of dehydration, or they're caught by predators like birds and crabs. And then once in the water, they swim for several miles offshore, where they basically are then caught in the currents and in the seaweed that might carry them around for a long time before they return to the near water's edge. Now, with these cute baby hatchling sea turtles, the numbers are pretty bleak as far as survival rate. And it makes sense because they've got a long haul. I mean, their moms just, their moms aren't there to protect them once, or to, she doesn't protect the incubating eggs from predators, and she doesn't protect them going into the ocean. And then they're obviously pretty tiny and maybe might make a tasty treat for a lot of the ocean predators. And so the number, Chris, the staggering number is 1 in 1,000 survive that 20 or 30 year range to become a breeding adult. That
is, yeah, they uphill climb. I mean, they've evolved that way and have been very successful. But now that you introduce all of these pressures, not just climate change, and we're going to get to the threats here in a second, but yeah, like that's why people are freaking out. The scientists are freaking out. I mean, a lot of these animals we cover there's one thing or the other, but sea turtles again are a barometer species of the health of the oceans, and they're plummeting. So we know other species are plummeting, right? And I guess that's a good segue into conservation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, really the numbers are, pretty bleak in the fact that of the 7 species of sea turtles, 6 are either threatened or endangered.
Right. Yeah. The loggerhead is endangered. The green turtle is endangered. The hawksbill is critically endangered. Kemp's Ridley, critically endangered. Olive Ridley, vulnerable. Flatback's the only one we don't have data on. The leatherback is listed as vulnerable, but I wanted to highlight a couple of the subpopulations, and this is IUCN. The East Pacific Ocean subpopulation, so this is Mexico to Ecuador, they're critically endangered. There's only 633 adults in that population. Okay, that's the estimate. The Southwest Atlantic Ocean subpopulation from Brazil to Africa. So they migrate from Brazil to Africa across the Atlantic. They're estimating only 35 adults.
Oh,
so
no.
Yeah. Now the West Pacific, they're critically endangered, but there's only 1,400 adults. So yeah, the leatherback, they're facing, dire straits. So, all of them basically. I'm sure the flatback is right there with them. I mean, they just don't have the data on them yet. Now, some of the threats, this really surprised me. The shell trade. United States, don't ever, 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 ever buy anything sea turtle. Ever. Like, please don't. Because that is little trinkets and different things with turtle shell. It's just, that is one of their major threats. Egg collection around the world. People collect them to eat, and then meat, adult turtles or, juvenile turtles for meat. Obviously habitat destruction. So nesting sites, feeding sites, there's been I know in the Southeast United States, there's been a lot to try to protect them. I know they're in Florida.
Oh yeah. Like during breeding and nesting season, the hotels I've stayed in at least 1 or 2 of them on the East Coast, put a lot of signage, a lot of education, a lot of conservation stuff up as far and have us, they encourage you to turn your lights off. So therefore the turtles don't get mixed up with which way they're going and for when they do hatch. And so because they are so well loved, at least here in the US, I know there has been a big push to try to reduce our human influence on them, which is near impossible, of course.
Yeah, I know.
But hey, you got to try. And like I said, these, the East Coast definitely, in my experience, I was really, really impressed with their signage and their education. And it's not perfect, but it's trying. And that gives me hope, right? Like,
I mean, compared to 10 years ago.
Exactly,
I mean, a decade
Chris,
ago, you
right,
didn't see that
exactly.
stuff. Right.
And so the more that we can educate people in general that live in these coastal areas or that are visiting, to be respectful. And I think also too, the economies in the area will flourish if they, if they can basically, help educate people, make people happy, and then also save the sea turtles.
And some of the other stuff is, habitat destruction of the nests and feeding sites. We've hit on this: marine debris, nets, straws, plastics, then pollution. Ocean pollution is a big one, that big garbage patch in middle of the Pacific. So there's a lot, going on for them, but this will be an hour on itself. There are some really, really good sea turtle organizations out there. There's some amazing ones.
There are so many. I highly recommend getting either on Facebook or on the internet, just looking around. There's a fair amount of them. Like I said, kind of this boom that started out of Costa Rica, making it a little bit more trendy and popular. The organization that I want to highlight today is one of the best nonprofits out there, not only for sea turtles, but just in general. They've basically been helping sea turtles since 1959, and they're called the Sea Turtle Conservancy. And they can be found of course, on Facebook. Just search Sea Turtle Conservancy, and Chris will put the links on our show notes. But they can also be found at www.conserveturtles.org. And their programs include a ton of research, of course, in Tortuguero, Costa Rica, Panama, Florida, locally here, Bermuda, tracking sea turtles all across the globe. And they work with education, which we know is huge. Policy. Okay. I mean, we all know that I've got to put the laws in place to have people abide by either anti-poaching and anti-hunting and these kinds of things. They work with beachfront lighting, as we had touched on before. And they have this amazing program called their Turtle Tracker, where they have tracking projects, active turtles, archived turtles, basically help you get involved. They let you know actions you can take, this is a good website for us, how to reduce your plastic waste. I wonder if their don't wrap your Christmas tree item is up there. I should tell. I'll write them a little letter. But they have it's just a beautiful, beautiful website, and they have a lot of support groups and staff, and they're huge. They have been, like I said, donating their time and money and energy into research and learning about these animals. I think a lot of what we know about their behavior and research comes from groups like this one. So yes, check out the show notes, like them on Facebook. You'll get amazing, beautiful pictures of sea turtles, on your Facebook feed, which would make, I think, everybody happy, including myself. And so, the Sea Turtle Conservancy. Please check them out. Like them on Facebook. They have amazing products. Like if you're a sea turtle fan, you can buy a sea turtle t-shirt or a sea turtle coffee cup mug, which might be actually a great present for John now that I'm thinking about that.
Yes. Well, that and the trees, you're going to buy them, right? We're going to come back to Florida. You're going to have like 50 trees in your front yard.
I'm trying. Yeah, I got to get that avocado tree going.
Right. Well, so conservation tips, and I'm trying to make this simpler because in the beginning, I think it was grand, had a lot of grand ideas. So for this one, just simple. Stop using plastic straws, period. The end. Be done. We've said it before. I'm going to dedicate this one this week to sea turtles. There just was in the news a few weeks ago of a sea turtle having a straw in its nose, and they pulled it out. Do not use plastic straws. What you can use, and what I'm going to help everybody with, is you can either buy the aluminum straws that you can clean, bring with you everywhere, like Angie does.
I keep them in my purse, absolutely, and in my car.
Or paper straws. You can buy paper straws. You're starting to see those now. And it's, like I said, we got to plant more trees. It's easier to recycle them. If they get in the oceans, they dissolve. So paper straws are safer for sea life. I'm going to put links. Now I'll use Amazon, and it's from the US. So from your home country, because I know we have listeners like Joanne in South Africa and
Hi, Joanne,
and others.
again. Thank you. Great suggestion.
Jesse and Bryn down there in New Zealand. I mean, we got friends everywhere. You can use Amazon or anywhere in your country and buy a bunch of paper straws or these aluminum straws. It's catching on.
And send us a picture of you sipping out of it, and we'll put it on Facebook.
Yeah, Jesse,
and we'll give you a shout out.
Yeah,
we'll a shout out with Save a Sea Turtle. And same thing. Just trust me. It's even me, who obviously loves to talk. I sometimes just forget to not ask for plastic. Mm-hmm. And it's just getting it in my lingo and just by saying and just opening up that dialogue with your food servers in the food industry or in stores, your clerks. I worked in the stores for a lot of my life and definitely as a server, and they want to be hip to the scene. And so I think if you just say fun stuff like Save a Sea Turtle, like Chris said, with this being in the media more so, people are going to get it and you're going to get some cool points. And I think we need to start a revolution.
Yes. And just, when I'm at restaurants, I'm like, no, I don't need a straw. Thank you. I can drink from a glass just fine.
Yeah.
Don't need it. Don't need it.
Or when you get takeout, you don't need plastic silverwares and spoons and all of that. It's just going to end up in the garbage or
we just need to go back to eat with our fingers. Just go back to eat with our fingers.
My boys do. Yeah. They're proud about it.
Yes. All right. So we said in the beginning, sea turtles cry, and it's true. They do cry. Now, it's not due to sadness. It's more of the final thing on physiology with them. And there's so many cool things physiology-wise. But the reason they secrete tears is it's basically salt secretion. Mm-hmm. So they don't need fresh water. They get enough water from their diet, and the seawater they metabolize. But like seabirds and other reptiles, they have this special gland in their eyes that get rid of excess salt. So it looks like they're crying, but really it's just them of getting rid of that excess salt. And then also like the females, when they come on the beach, it keeps sand out of their eyes, right? So they kind of lubricate their eyes that way too. So that's why they're doing it. We're crying them because we're sad and, we want to save them. But for them, it's more of a physiological mechanism than anything to do with their mental state, I guess.
Right. But just think it has to do with their mental state. So you want to save a sea turtle. Save a sea turtle.
Yes.
Save a sea turtle. Say no to plastic.
And send this podcast to a friend. That's what we're asking
so
you to
they
do.
can get on a Save the Sea Turtle train because it's an amazing train to be on. Their physiology is incredible. They've been around for millions of years. They need to be around for millions more. So we can all have a chance to enjoy just their grace and their beauty for years to come.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Save a Sea Turtle, Angie.
That's right. Thanks, Chris. You too, buddy.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Listen, learn, share. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.